Number 10, 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. 0 to 60, 6.5 seconds. Like most muscle cars of the era, the Mustang Boss 429 was all about the engine that featured 4-bolt main caps, a Ford steel crank, Ford steel connecting rods, and aluminum cylinder heads with a semi-hemispherical type of combustion chamber, which Ford called the Crescent. These engines were rated at 375 gross horsepower, which seems conservative if you ask me. The name Boss stems from either the popular 1960s slang for excellent or very cool, or by stylist Larry Shinoda in recognition of the enthusiasm of his new boss, new Ford president Bunky Knudsen, who had brought Shinoda over from GM Chevrolet division. Just 1,359 of these cars were made for model year 1969. Number 9. 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge. 0 to 60, 6.4 seconds. Believe it or not, the Judge package for the 1969 Pontiac GTO was named after a recurring routine on the then current and very popular TV show Laugh-In. The Judge was a step up from the regular GTO and included the Ram Air 400 engine, Rally 2 wheels without trim rings, Hurst shifter with a unique T-shaped handle, wider tires, various decals, and a rear spoiler. Pontiac claimed that the spoiler had some functional effect at higher speeds, producing a small but measurable downforce, but was of little value at legal speeds. Very cool touch though, if you ask me. Number 8. Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454. 0 to 60, 6.1 seconds. Chevrolet offered a number of different versions of their new for 1970 454 cubic inch V8, but the one you wanted, if you could find one or get one ordered, was the 450 horsepower 454 LS6 that featured an atmosphere-guzzling 800 CFM 4-barrel Holley carburetor. I know, interesting that it wasn't a Rochester quadrijet. Chevelles of this vintage are considered by many to be the holy grail of muscle cars. I don't disagree. Number 7, 1967 Shelby GT500. 0 to 60, 6 seconds flat. Shelby Mustangs were high-performance variants of the Ford Mustang built by Shelby American from 1965 to 1967 and by the Ford Motor Company from 1968 to 1970. For 1967, the GT500 was added to the lineup, which also included the 289 cubic inch GT350 and was equipped with a Ford Cobra FE Series 428 cubic inch, or for our metric fans, 7-liter V8 with two 600 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetors atop a mid-rise aluminum intake manifold. By the way, just so you know, in case you don't, FE stood for Ford Edsel. Number 6. 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. 0 to 60, 5.7 seconds. With the failure of the 1968 Dodge Charger 500 in NASCAR and Richard Petty defecting to Ford, Dodge pulled out all the stakes with these far-out-looking winged warriors. Powered by Chrysler's 426 Hemi, 440 cubic inch Magnum V8, or 440 six-pack engine, six-pack denoting 3 2-barrel carburetors. By the way, only 70 of the 503 of these cars produced for 1969 carried the 426 Hemi. At Talladega on March 24, 1970, one of these was the first NASCAR to break the 200-mile-per-hour mark. Number 5, 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. 0 to 60, 5.6 seconds. The legendary Hemi engine in 1970 and 1971 Hemi Cudas was first introduced as a race car engine in 1964 and what we call the Street Hemi in 1966. The Street Hemi had 10.25 to 1 compression compared to the race Hemi's 12.5 to 1, had dual inline 4-barrel carburetors, a lower lift camshaft, and iron exhaust manifolds instead of lighter steel long tube headers. Dubbed the elephant engine for the amount of horsepower it made, purportedly 425 gross rated horsepower. It was also gigantic dimensionally and weighed almost 175 pounds more than Chrysler's other monster engine of the time, the RB or raised block 440 cubic inch V8. Only 666 Hemi Cudas were made for 1970, making them very rare, but the ones that remain are some of the most valuable and sought-after muscle cars of all time. Number 4, 1970 Buick GSX. 0 to 60, 5.5 seconds. A Buick on a top 10 list of fastest muscle cars of all time? And not only that, it's near the top of our list. For 1970, General Motors lifted their self-imposed ban on full-size car engines being available in mid-size cars, and that gave way to a number of quite memorable muscle cars, like the Buick GSX. Gross horsepower for the 455 cubic inch Buick V8 was said to be north of 420 in these things, with a gross torque rating of more than 500 foot-pounds. foot-pounds. Only 678 Buick GSXs were made for 1970. Number 3. 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30. 0 to 60, 5.4 seconds. The Olds 442 had been around since 1964, and for 1970, like many muscle cars that year, things got really crazy. All 442s for 1970 were stuffed with Oldsmobile's 455 cubic inch V8, and ones with the W30 option made some 370 horsepower and more than 500 foot-pounds of torque. An Oldsmobile 442 W30 paced the 1970 Indianapolis 500. Number 2. 1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. 0 to 60, 4.1 seconds. The 1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 was ordered and bought through Chevrolet's Copo ordering system. Copo was used by various customers to order fleet vehicles like police cars, township vehicles, taxis, and so on. These companies wanted some special equipment, option combinations, or even a color change that weren't readily available. Some smart muscle car-loving buyers used the system to custom order their cars to make them go faster. In the case of the 1969 Camaro ZL1, much faster. The Camaro ZL1 uses the same aluminum 427 big block V8 the Corvette ZL1 uses. Spoiler alert, more on that in a second or two. A total of 69 ZL1 Camaros were produced for model year 1969. Number 1. 1969 Chevrolet Corvette ZL1. 0 to 60, 4 seconds flat. With only 2 ever made, the 1969 Corvette ZL1 is without question one of the rarest Corvettes ever made. Its engine, the same 427 that's in the Camaro ZL1, was based on the cast-iron L88 427 Chevrolet engine that debuted for 1967 in the Corvette and was rated at 430 gross horsepower. Now, big block Chevrolet V8s were very heavy, and with weight being the enemy in racing, an aluminum version of the L88 was born, cast. The L88 ran buyers a cool $1,000 above the cost of a Corvette, and the ZL1, for the select 2 who ordered them, ran buyers an additional $4,700. That was huge bucks back in the day, as we say. The ZL1, like the L88, was rated at 430 gross horsepower, or if you're keeping score at home, 376 net horses. Legend has it could produce over 500 gross horsepower with exhaust changes and tuning. Really interesting that this car has an automatic. The other ZL1, purportedly a coupe dressed in white over black, has an automatic as well. Our orange beauty here sold at auction recently for more than $3 million. Well, there you have it, my list of the 10 fastest muscle cars of the muscle car era, 1964 through 1970. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment below. Please like and subscribe.